I've never really assumed that I'm getting predominance of facts. So that's sort of where I stand on that.
It does seem like everybody's, I mean, after each show or even during, you find yourself Googling, whether
Exactly.
things, yeah,
Yeah,
how,
I mean, I think
yeah.
that's one of the great things about The
Yeah.
Crown and a lot of historical dramas is they inspire people to go look online and find out, what really happened. I do that all the time.
Um, so I mean, obviously you have to watch a lot of new TV for your job and you have to decide what to watch. Readers were also curious about sort of, do you watch TV just for fun when you don't have to watch it for work? And if so, what do you watch? Older shows that you turn
I
to?
definitely do. I mean, one of the things I like about TV right now is that it's challenging. There are a lot of shows that I watch where I feel like I really have to stay alert. They're asking me questions. They're challenging my morality or whatever. You know, the Sopranos was really one of the early shows to start doing that. So, usually when I'm watching TV for work, I am focusing and taking notes, and that's a certain kind of watching. It's not unpleasant at all. I can love a show. I mean, like Queen's Gambit or anything on my list. I can love them and still be kind of, thinking hard and about what I want to say. And but yeah, then there are times when I sit down and I just turn on, like everybody else, The Office, which is endlessly entertaining, and I always get new things, even if I've seen the episodes before. Um, I think it was Thanksgiving weekend, the E Channel had a marathon of 30 Rock, which, I probably saw half of that. I mean, I love watching reruns of comedies, Parks and Recreation. I mean, that's just brainless fun to me. Um, and occasionally, what did I wrote down the list.
Oh, good.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, there's this cool channel. It's called, like, I think it's Me TV. I'm not sure. I think it's Me TV. And they show old Norman Lear sitcoms like Sanford and Son and Maude. And every once in a while, if I'm just sitting, I've just gotten home, it's late, I just want to unwind, I'm not working, I'll put on one of those shows. And those are great. It's amazing to watch those now because they still resonate. There's so many social truths in those shows. Norman Lear is, a hero and a king. I mean, he's an amazing guy.
So kind of related to that, I think people are curious about, I mean, you have to write about all different types of shows, but like, is there a specific or type of show, genre of show that you like, that if you didn't have to watch all these shows, what would you gravitate towards?
That's a great question. I mean, I think I love costume dramas.
Ah,
I do. And, those are the books that I read. I still read all of those old, fat Victorian novels, and I love them. So I have been watching Masterpiece Theater for many, many years,
yeah.
long before I was writing about TV. So, I love dramas, like period dramas. I also like any drama that has a psychological orientation, that really is inviting you to study the characters and look at their motivations. I mean, one of the shows that did that, again, I'll mention The Sopranos. I mean, The Sopranos changed everything. And not just in terms of content, but in terms of getting people to go to cable. But I loved the way that everything that Tony was going through was filtered through the lens of his psychiatrist. And David Chase, I think, and his writers were also building other characters based on, their deeper motivations. I love that. Any show that kind of presents its characters that way, especially if it's a drama. is, I'm a sucker for it. And then there was the show In Treatment, which was just straight up therapy, which I think is one of the underrated shows out there. I mean, they only did 3 seasons, and they're actually bringing it back with a different therapist. This time, the first round of 3 seasons was Gabriel Byrne. Yeah. And this time it's Uzo Aduba. So we'll see how it turns out. But those first 3 seasons were just incredible. Yeah. Did you have to see any of them?
Oh, I watched it all. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, I can't wait to see the next one.
Yeah.
So let's pivot a little bit. This is the number one question. The number one question among pre-submitted reader questions is, how do you choose between streaming services? And also, do I really need cable anymore? So one person said, aside from Netflix, what's worth the money? Do you have any tips to share? If you're not going to buy every single, service out there, how do you figure out what's for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a mess out there. It's so chaotic. And, it seems like every month there's some new streaming service. In fact, just this week, Discovery announced that they are starting in next month, Discovery Plus. So it is confusing. Excuse me. Ty Burr wrote, I think, a pair of columns that were really excellent to help readers figure out what mix they want. And I think, he kind of said it best. I mean, you guys out there are all subscribers, so you have access to it, and to both of those stories, and I recommend that. I think it's really important to remember that you do not have to sign up for any service forever. I mean, really, you can just sign up to, Apple TV Plus, pay your $7 or whatever it is. And for a month, maybe 2 months, you can watch every original show they have, and you can catch up. And then you cancel your subscription and you move to something else. That is the best way to proceed, I think, in this moment. But you have to obviously be on the ball. You have to remember to cancel. Actually, if you ask me, y'all should be keeping a list anyway of all the shows that you want to watch. And, on that list that I recommended that you keep in the paper a few times, you can also remind yourself to cancel HBO Max and sign up for Hulu. I hate to think of readers feeling like if they sign up for Hulu, that's it. It's a year. It's going to cost them $150 a year. You don't need to do that. Get 2 months of Hulu. You can watch, 5 of their original series, and then next year you'll do 2 more months of Hulu and catch up on the rest. I hate to think of readers or viewers missing, some of the great stuff that's out there because they think that they can't afford it. I think many more people can afford this stuff than they realize if they remember that they're not obligated to stay with these services.
Yeah, that's a great. I also want to point to your own story from the spring, which was a guide to streaming, like comparing all the different services, and you gave analysis, like what you think the strengths of each are. And for everyone on this call, we're going to when we send you the link to the video of the call, we'll include a link to that story in case you missed it, so you can go back and see the comparisons from the spring. And we'll have to update that at some point, since there was more stuff going on now too. So another question, this is going back to genres. A lot of people are looking for uplifting and inspirational stories. They liked Queen's Gambit, I think, for that reason, a show that really showed a character's resilience. Cheerful, amusing. They wanted to make sure that we included some discussion of that. People mentioned Schitt's Creek in The Office and Emily in Paris. Aside from those, what advice do you have on things you're watching now?
I can't recommend Ted Lasso enough if you're looking for good cheer. Did you see that, Veronica?
No, I don't have Apple TV yet, but
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's on Apple TV Plus. And I can tell you that if you sign up for Apple TV Plus for a month or two, there are 3 or 4 or 5 really good series there. I wouldn't stay the whole year. Why do you need to, they don't have any library even. So, but Ted Lasso it's such a wonderful series because Jason Sudeikis plays a football coach, an American football coach, who is hired by a British soccer team. And he knows nothing about soccer, but he takes the job. He's just an easygoing guy. He gets there and, everybody's making fun of him, but he's so likable, and he wins everybody over. He's got this optimism that is infectious. At times, the show even reminded me of Friday Night Lights, which is one of my all-time favorites, because he's almost like Coach Eric. He's like, he's inspirational, and he gets them all motivated to win. And then there are supporting characters that are unforgettable. I really recommend that one if you're looking for something cheerful this year and this time of year. Also, again, it's racy, but Sex Education on Netflix is such a kick. It makes me laugh. It's sort of like Freaks and Geeks. It's got that warm high school ensemble of kids who are all kind of growing up and coming of age. And there is a lot of sex, especially in the very first episode of the series, which I think turns some people off. But stick with it. It's a feel-good series, and I really love it. It was on my top 10 list last year. I did not include it this year, but the second season is quite good. And also, if you're looking for just escapism, PBS Masterpiece always has these wonderful, I mean, they're like travelogues, the Durrells in Corfu. There's one coming up, I think next month, called All Creatures Great and Small, which is, an adaptation. They're so pretty. They're set in little villages, and everybody's so sweet. And there's the town doctor who heals everybody. And, those I find very transporting. It's another time, it's another place. There's a strong layer of innocence over everything. And Grantchester too. That's another PBS, pretty PBS show.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I heard someone was telling me that Ted Lasso might be a good one to watch with kids or with like teens and tweens. That's appropriate for, yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
I don't have children, so I don't watch with that in mind. But I don't recall anything in that show that, would be disturbing for kids. I don't think.
One reader made this comment that was interesting about, the question was, how is TV so good these days? And, just sort of getting at the fact that there is so much really great stuff out there. And then, confessing that it's kind of ruined movies for them. And, that this reader would rather be watching TV shows.
That's the plan.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
My goal is to put, Ty Burr out of work.
I mean, they were sort of looking for an explanation about why.
It's fascinating. It is fascinating because I took this job in, it was 1998. And at the time, a few people said to me, are you sure that you really want to write about television? I mean, prior to that, I had been writing about movies and books, a lot about books, a lot of author interviews. TV was it was considered the kind of, not really an art form. Well, that was 98. 99, The Sopranos premiered. and everything changed. I mean, I can't emphasize that enough because I went through it. I mean, suddenly, shows were going places that they couldn't before. I mean, the cable revolution just changed everything. There were no advertisers to answer to. So, you didn't have to make shows simplistic. You didn't have to keep reminding viewers of what happened. You didn't, you could really dig into serialized storytelling and moral ambiguity and, all kinds of gray areas that network TV was avoiding and still avoids, really. I mean, they have to answer to advertisers. That's the bottom line. And, they have to answer to standards and practices because they're broadcast. Whereas cable and now streaming, they can do whatever they want. And so, that was the beginning of the creativity boom in television. And, when the Sopranos caught on, and that got it all rolling, and HBO was on top of all of that. And HBO is still an amazing outlet. I mean, I always find stuff there. I mean, their curators are the best. I mean, they pick and choose well. So I think that, the model of cable allowing creatives to do what they want. When you take a show to a network, they micromanage you. They micromanage your show. HBO doesn't do that. I mean, they're engaged, but they're supportive to their creative people, especially their writers. And, so you don't get these compromised products. You don't, where clearly some executive has been, calculating whether or not you're going to attract viewers or whether you're, whatever. You get the creative vision, unadulterated. And so that was the beginning of all the good stuff. And, the money eventually has gone there, and technology has obviously only made it more intense now, with streaming. So I hope you can't hear that. Anybody's mowing or blowing leaves or something. But anyway, so yeah, TV has just really taken off. I mean, when I started the job, I could potentially have seen almost everything that was on, at least once. I mean, it was rare that someone would ask me about a show and I wouldn't have even heard of it, never mind not seen it. And it happens to me all the time now. Someone says, "Oh, what did you think of such and such, a Spanish show?" And I have never even heard of it, It's just, there's so much out there and so much of it is good. And, I just see my job for the Globe as kind of trying to go through as much as I can and really find the best stuff for readers. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I mean, there weren't any network shows on the list this year. I mean, what about network TV? Has there been a network show on your list anytime recently?
Yes, the Good Place has been on my list.
Okay.
And I really admire This Is Us. I think it's got some serious problems with, saccharin. They're constantly trying to bully you into crying. I really don't like it. And yet I completely admire the structure of that show and the narrative, jumping back and forth in time and creating this amazing portrait of a family from, the early days until the later days. So I really admire a lot about it, but that's a network show. But otherwise, I mean, it's really hard. There is not much on network TV that I really feel inclined to watch. It's so much reality show. There are so many reality shows. There are way too many game shows. They're just going for the cheap stuff. And I think they've given up even trying to compete with cable and streaming. So it's sad, but occasionally a comedy will come along, like on NBC that tickles my fancy. But really, it's rare. And I hear from readers a lot about that, and they are frustrated with me because I don't pick, or focus enough on network shows. And I don't know what to say. I mean, I know.
Have you heard from them about your top 10 list yet?
Well, I haven't gotten too many emails because it just went up, but
yeah.
there are some notes or comments at the bottom already. I think there are 40 or something no comments. So, I mean, that's what those lists are about. You want people to kind of argue. I did get an email right before the chat from a woman who said she tried to watch The Great, which on Hulu, and she found it so upsetting. There was too much vulgarity. And I understand. I understand. If you don't like bawdiness, you don't go near it. In my reviews and when I describe shows, I try to put in descriptions that speak to people on that level. Like in my number 2 show, which probably was going to be number 1 for a while, but my number 2 show, I May Destroy You, which is on HBO, is very intense. It's about the aftermath of a rape. And in the 12 episodes, it returns to issues of sexual consent and sexual assault. And, it's not a fun ride. I mean, there are funny moments on the show. Michaela Cole, who wrote and stars and co-directed the show, has a great sense of humor. So it's funny, but it's not for everyone. I mean, that's for sure. So
another reader question was about shows that you consider criminally underrated.
This is my favorite part. I love plugging shows that I think enough people didn't watch. My favorite, and so in preparation, I always keep this handy. First of all, Nurse Jackie. It was a Showtime series. I'm sure you've probably heard of it, but it wasn't like a massive hit, and it certainly never. It doesn't always come up in the conversations about the best ever TV. And I honestly think that was a really great show. I think Edie Falco just killed it on that show. Not literally, I don't think. I don't want to spoil anything. But she was amazing. And the show was just a really uncompromising look at the life of a pill addict. A very functional, highly functional woman who was just plain and simple an addict, and she kept taking her life apart. She had this wonderful husband, these 2 girls, and a career as a nurse, and she just couldn't stop herself from self-destruction. And so I loved that show. There was something on FX, I think, called Man Seeking Woman, which was a comedy. I think it only 3 or 4 seasons. I'm forgetting right now, but it's from Simon Rich, a guy who's a son of Frank Rich, actually. And he wrote for Saturday Night Live for a while. But anyway, this show was so creative. I mean, it was a single guy in New York City, but I'd never seen it done this way. It was surreal. He walked in and out of these fantasies that they recreated so beautifully. If you like, remember Scrubs was a wonderful show. And they had these sort of surrealistic flashes where the characters would suddenly be in another place and then return to the original place. Man Seeking Woman only does that. I mean, it's all a series of these, surreal, inventive sequences. So that's another one. Getting on HBO with Laurie Metcalf, a hysterical comedy set in like the elderly section of a hospital. And High Maintenance, an HBO series about a weed dealer that is really about New York City and the people who live there. And I think that's a beautiful show. To me, it feels almost Walt Whitman-esque as it goes from story to story. He delivers the weed, and then he often splits, and the camera stays with the people that he just delivered to sort of follow their story. And then it goes somewhere else. So that show I love. Rectify. Should I keep nattering on? I got a
Yeah,
minute.
a couple more. Yeah, sure.
All right. The Nick. Clive Owen
Oh, yeah.
starred in the show.
Yeah.
It only lasted 2 seasons. It was directed and edited and filmed by Steven Soderbergh. And it's about a hospital in the year 1900 and a doctor played by Clive Owen who's like an opium addict, but he's a brilliant doctor. And it's really fascinating. It's so realistic in a way that can be repulsive, such as when he's operating on someone and sticking his bare hands like up into their viscera. But it's also got themes of racism, and I loved that show. I want more people to have seen it. What else? Oh, something called Downward Dog. It only lasted one short season, but if you're a dog person, you really owe yourself. You owe it to yourself to find it. It originally aired on ABC. It may be on their website, abc.com. It's got to be somewhere out there. And it's short, but it is so funny if you like dogs, if you know dogs. It's actually, there's a talking dog on it, but don't let that turn you off. It actually works really well.
So I'm delving into the chat a little bit and looking at what you were saying. So there's some interest in suspense series. We also got a question about crime and investigative kinds of shows. Yeah. Anything that you would point to there?
Absolutely. I think, first of all, if you're into crime, you have to pursue the British crime shows. If you don't mind them dark, and by that I mean kind of literally, I mean, a lot of them are shot kind of in shadowy tones, but also, they go there. I mean, pedophile, rapists, murderers, it's all there. But shows like The Fall, which starred Gillian Anderson, my beloved,
yes,
who I think is awesome. And it's one of her best roles as a detective looking for a serial killer. And it's so well done. Mindhunter on Netflix. It's only had 2 seasons so far. David Fincher made it. And he initially said about 6 months ago that he didn't think he was going to be able to go back to it. But now, more recently, he has said that he would like to. So we'll see what happens. But 2 great seasons, especially the second season. If you like, it's about the people who kind of discovered criminal profiling, figuring out who serial killers are, what they, just studying them. And it's really well done. I really liked that. Unbelievable. It's a show. It's a mini series. And Toni Collette and Merritt Weaver co-star as 2 detectives searching for a serial rapist. And it's based on a true story, and it is A+. It's dark, but it's really good. But anyway, so I'm sorry, I veered away. I detoured from the British ones. So we've got The Fall, Broadchurch, which I think a lot of people already know about. An Australian one called Top of the Lake. I think it's Australian, with Elizabeth Moss. Again, very dark, but very smart and very good. So yeah, there's a million of them. I got a million of them. Email me.
So
I'll,
on the British question, somebody else asked Acorn versus BritBox.
oh, again, you don't really have to stick with just one. You can do one for a while and then switch to the other. And I honestly think that's always the best way. My sense, and I don't use either of them primarily just because I get stuff, provided by networks in a different way. But my sense is that BritBox, it represents more of what British TV is like at this moment. Recent shows air there, and then like the next day, kind of like what happens here with Hulu, they'll show up on BritBox. So I think BritBox is more contemporary. I think of Acorn as having a lot of more of the classics, and those are a lot of the great detective shows that were on. A lot of them were on PBS. So my sense is, go back and forth, try them out. Don't ever feel locked in. You know what? I'm going to make a sign and I'm going to go stand somewhere with it. Remind people that they really don't have to commit to any service for any prolonged, time.
That is a really good point. And for some reason, you do think of it as like a long term, I can't get out of
Yeah,
it.
it's a misconception that a lot
Yeah.
of people have. I mean, of course, if you're cutting the cord entirely, you need to have your base. And a lot of people are cutting the cord and going to YouTube TV. But, you need your base, you need your cable or whatever it is. But then with all these other things, including Netflix, but also Hulu, Apple TV, Disney Plus, as you pointed out, Veronica, that piece I wrote mentions a lot of them. You
Yeah.
just cycle around in them. Don't ever feel like you're trapped.
Somebody wants to know what kind of TV you have. Do you have a giant TV?
Oh,
Anything you want to share about equipment?
yeah, maybe I could carry my laptop and show you, but I probably should want. But it's nothing special. I don't even know the brand. I think it's like I don't even know what it is. I'm embarrassed. I have no
Okay.
idea. But it does the trick. And I watch a lot of stuff on my computer and my laptop in particular. I mean, there was a time when the networks and even the cable channels would send video cassettes or discs, which was great because then I could like be Mr. Powerful among my friends. Like I have The Sopranos before anybody else. Now it's all done through online links.
Yeah.
So I do spend time with my laptop, but when I really want to watch something, especially if it's got some, interesting visuals, I'll watch it on my bigger TV, which I think is like a 30-inch. It's nice and big, and I sit right in the center, and that does the trick for me.
I'm scrolling through the questions as we're talking. One other question I have is about your relationship with readers. I mean, we've talked about this, and I know you said, I mean, you've always heard from them a lot, and that during the pandemic you've heard from them even more. I'm sort of wondering if you can give a sense of from where you sit, like what are people really reacting to right now? Are they have they changed your mind about anything? Are they like what are they focused on now?
Yes. Occasionally I will hear from a reader who will make a point that really speaks to me. I take them very seriously, and I really enjoy hearing from readers. Even if it's just to complain randomly about something that has nothing to do with anything that I've written. Yeah, I, mo- yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just chit chat about, did I see this, or what should I watch? And it's so valuable to me. It's one of my favorite parts of this job, and it's something that I didn't find when I was writing about other things. People love to talk about TV. It's a very personal kind of activity in some ways. I mean, you're doing it in your home, and especially now with the pandemic. I mean, people are really depending on it, so they won't go out of their minds. I mean, yes, somebody always shows up in the comments of a story to remind us that we can read books, which I appreciate, but and I do read. But we watch TV, and people like stories. We love to get lost in various stories. We like to be provoked by them. So I love being part of the conversation about that. It's really been one of the best things about being a TV critic is the interaction with readers. The most common complaint I hear isn't about me, although I do hear those. But it's about violence on TV. A lot of people just really violence. And it's true. TV has become quite violent. You do have to be careful. Children. There are a lot of shows that need to be kept from easily triggered children. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but yeah. So that's the biggest negative thing I hear from readers about.
A couple of people have also asked about foreign language shows. Do you have favorites there?
I do. I mean, unfortunately, I don't have time enough to get to a lot of them. It seems like Netflix is dropping a couple of Spanish or Japanese series every month. So I have missed out on a lot of that. But I did see Shtisel, which is amazing. It's set in Jerusalem, and they made 2 seasons, and I think the second season was in 2014, and it became so popular on Netflix that they're actually going back into production to make a 3rd season, which I think we'll see sometime this year. And the pandemic has slowed that production down, but that show is so wonderful. It's a real window into an entirely different culture of people, Orthodox Jews who basically turn their backs on the modern world. What's it like to live among them? It's not a judgmental series. It's not trying to appall us. It's just, it's showing us what their lives are like. And in some ways, while watching it, I kept thinking of the old period dramas, because they also in those days were living by these rules that don't always fit easily with human nature. So Shtisel. Another favorite is My Brilliant Friend, which is an adaptation of the series of novels that have been so popular. And it's really good. This past year, HBO ran season 2, which equaled season 1, which was on my top 10 list last year. It's a really special, wonderful show about just basically a female friendship over the decades, the long-term friendship between these 2 women who compete with each other and support each other and go through all kinds of things. It's really well done. What else? What other foreign language show? It's got to be more. Not that thick. Oh, Borgen. Borgen is on Netflix now, so I highly recommend that. It's a Danish political series that basically it's so well done. It follows this woman who's the first female prime minister, and it's just about her marriage and the way she manages the moral compromises of being a politician. So Borgen, and that's another Netflix show or another show that hit Netflix like Shtisel, and now they've decided to shoot another season. And these shows finished years ago. They pulled everybody back together and went back into production. So there will be another season of Borgen as well.
There are a lot of questions in here about various shows and whether they're coming back. Like whether, I feel like people are always, trying to figure out whether shows are going to return. Do you have any advice about following that stuff and like best sources for? You obviously write about that in your columns, but like how can people?
I pretty much assume everything is going to come back at some point. Yeah. Reboot, is that what you mean? Like reboots?
Well, no, whether shows will be back for another season, whether they've been
renewals. Yeah. Everything is screwed up right now because, production basically stopped on everything. And so some shows actually that were going to go back into production eventually aren't. And some are when they can. So yeah, it's a pretty, right now I'd say Google is your friend, and just if there's a specific show that you're wondering about, Google for it because, everything's a mess.
Yeah. There was another process question about how often you watch a show before you write about it. Can you watch it once and yeah?
Often I can just watch it once. I think the unspoken obligation for a TV critic is to watch all the episodes that are made available. So, it used to be they'd only send you the premiere. Now we get entire seasons, and I try to watch everything that I can before. So, when you've got 12 episodes of a show sitting waiting for you, it doesn't lend itself to rewatching. But, that said, occasionally, if it's something I really like, or if it's something that I am returning to write about a second time, I will rewatch something. And that's always very telling. I really enjoy that. Oh, and on the subject of actually watching everything that they make available, I recently had an experience where Hulu premiered a show called A Teacher, based on a movie. I think it was a 2013 movie, also called A Teacher, and it's 8 or 10 episodes, and I think it's 10 episodes, and I got like 4 episodes into it, and I just wanted to scream. It's about the relationship between a student and a teacher, a high school student and an older teacher. And it almost seemed like they were romanticizing it. I felt complicit watching it. It gave me the willies. Like, does the show runners not understand that this is pretty horrific, And I almost wanted to stop, and I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't. And it was critical that I didn't, because I think it was the 5th episode, everything switches. It all turns around. You now understand that this is an intensely damaging experience for this young man, and the sort of rest of the series is about the fallout for him and for her. So, it's really, I find it incredibly important to really try to watch everything that they send for that reason.
So we are almost at the end of our time here. It has flown by, and we've covered a lot of ground, I think. I want to I know people have come in and out of the call, so I want to restate that you're going to get, anybody who is participating in this call is going to get an email, and it's going to have a link to the whole video so you can watch the whole thing if you missed any parts of it. We're also going to include a link to Matthew's top 10 list that's online now, but you're subscribers, so you can go to the Globe and find that story with his 10 picks for 2020 along with 10 runners up. And the email will include the story that I mentioned previously, where Matthew compares the streaming services and like gives his opinions on those. And then we'll also, people are asking for the tie columns that you that you mentioned, so we'll put those in there. And then just a shout out to the Ask Matthew column, which people might know about, but where Matthew, you can ask any of these questions like you're asking today about what to watch, and Matthew answers, with recommendations specifically based on your tastes and what you're looking for right now. I don't know, do you get a ton of questions for that? Are you overwhelmed?
I was gonna, after you were finished, I was gonna just reiterate that I really love getting mail. So please write to me in any way you want. I may not get back to you instantly, depends what day it is, but I will get back to you. And I love hearing from you. So
Matthew.gilbert@globe.com.
correct.
And we are just so grateful to you, everybody, for joining us today, and for subscribing to the Globe, and really connecting with us through these Zooms. The Globe has been doing a lot more of these events, and I hope with the success of this one that we'll plan another one of these sometime soon, and that you all will come back for that. So please, everybody, have a great weekend.